Peterson with everything homemade, and I am going to show you how to make sprouted bread. Now, sprouted bread is totally different from your conventional yeasted bread or even sourdough bread. All you're using is the whole kernels of wheat. And that is your ingredients. What I am going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a plain loaf, and I'm going to make a honey raisin cinnamon loaf, and I'll show you what to do that so you understand the process and how simple it is. The biggest thing, you need to think a couple of days ahead of time, and then you get it together and you will have a delicious, unique to itself tasting loaf without flour. Now, before I begin, I want to say a big thank you to Tara, one of my biggest fans out there. She surprised me, it's been about a week or week and a half ago, with this apron that was made. Totally surprised me, and I want to say a big thank you for it. Really appreciate it. So let's get started. First of all, what you need here. You need wheat, okay? You can use spelt, you could use kamut, I mean, you can even have rye. What you need is the kernels. You really want to go organic in this case. Really nice, clean grain. Okay, so you have that. The other thing you'll need later on, which is really important, is something to make these kernels into like a paste, sort of speaking, and it'll be easier once I show you. I use the Omega juicer. You can use any juicer that you can make pasta. Okay, I can juice fresh fruits and vegetables, but at the same time, I can actually make pasta with this machine. And this is what you need. The other thing you could use is a meat grinder that you make meat into hamburger, but you would need a really, really fine, what you would call it, a plate. You don't want to do it on the larger plate, but you want like a really fine where it really smushes those seeds up. That's what you kind of looking for. Now, I tried it in my food processor. It does not work in your food processor, so don't even go there with it. All it does is chop it. You need something that squishes the seeds and makes this dough that you'll see at the end result, okay? The other thing is I have two bowls here. One, I'm going to separate it because when you soak grain, it takes more space up, and I want to make sure that I have them separated evenly. So for each loaf, I like using 4 cups of grain. So I take my grain here simply at first. This is a 2-cup measuring cup. Put 2 of these in here and put 2 of these in here. The next step that I'm going to do here is you fill this up with water. Now my grain is here. You want about 2 inches of water on top. Nice filtered water. And then you set this aside. And that is it for day 1. Day 2, we're going to come and I am simply going to rinse my grain. And I will show you how I do that tomorrow. And then we're going to, by day 3 or 4, depending on where my sprouts are, and I will show you what kind of sprouts, because this is the critical part of sprouted grain. You don't want your sprouts really big, and you don't want your sprouts too small either. And you say, well, what does that really matter? Well, it does on the consistency of your bread and the flavor of your bread and how your bread comes together. So once you master that, it is so simple. So I'm going to show you. So this film will be in literally like 4 parts because we're going to be doing it over a 3-day period. But you'll really come to understand what it involves in sprouted bread, why it's so healthy, and I'm going to show you exactly to the details of what you need, what I discovered with trial and error. Okay? So I'm going to put some water over this. I'm going to put it on my counter, let it sit overnight, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Okay, so we are back here 24 hours later, and take a look at the grain here. Right now it's nicely enlarged, but you see that there is no sprout, so we're not quite ready yet to make sprouted bread. We got probably 24 hours later, and it makes a huge difference. So what we need to do is give the grain some fresh water, and I'll show you how to do that. Just back up a little bit, Ocean, there. So what you see here is sometimes I clean my grain by hand, so I have a little bit of weeds on top here, and the easiest way to get rid of that is actually just spilling the water straight out into the sink, and that actually spills all the weeds out because they float to the top, which is very convenient. The rest of the water, I actually take a strainer and I just hold my bowl over and just hold it like that, and what happens is the water just drains out. I don't lose any of my wheat, and then I don't got to spill all my wheat out of my bowl either and make a big mess. So now that I have the water drained, all I'm going to do today is simply go over to the tap and put a whole bunch of fresh water in. And that is it. That's all you're doing 24 hours later is just refreshing the water and then let it sprout. I noticed that there's a little weed here. These little black weeds sometimes don't quite clean out, so I just kind of look at it, make sure everything is nice and clean, add some water. Now you only have to go about 1 centimeter over because they have already absorbed enough water, so they're not going to really absorb any more water. They're just going to sprout. So I'm going to do this for the second bowl, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Welcome back. We are on day 3, and we are ready to make sprouted bread. Now I'm going to go through all the ingredients of what you need. First, I have my Omega juicer, and I will show you how to set that up in a moment. I have 2 bowls here, one for the plain sprouted and one for the honey cinnamon loaf. I have my bowls of grain here. I also have about 2 tablespoons of melted honey, all ready to go. I have 1 cup of raisins. I have a little bit of olive oil, and the olive oil is only needed for my hands when I'm kneading, and I will explain that when I get there. I have a little bit of poppy seed. Now I'm going to do this first. What I'm going to do with the poppy seed is I'm just going to sprinkle this on the bottom of my pie dish here. And what that does is when I put my loaf on top, it's not going to stick, and that way I don't got to use flour. And it gives a nice little flavor to it and some color. So I'm going to get that ready right away. There you go. Okay, so that is ready. Now let's get back to my Omega juicer. So you can see the parts here. What's very important is when you're doing sprouted bread, you want to use the attachment that doesn't have all the holes because you don't want the grain to go through that area. So what I want to do is I want to grab these 2, put them in together. I want this part here on open. Put that in, make sure that everything's secure. Close it up. I want to take this attachment and I want to push it in. So that blocks the bottom here. So none of the grain is going to come from the bottom. Then I'm going to take this attachment. I'm going to put it in. What's going to happen is the grain's going to actually come out of here. Then I'm going to take this part, put it on top. I have my plunger. And what I do is they come with these containers, and these containers are to go underneath if you would have this spout area open, but I don't, but I still put it underneath there because sometimes you get little drips and it just helps so there's no mess. The other thing you need is a spoon with some slots in it, so when you are scooping the grain, any extra moisture will just drip down, okay? So I'm going to take my bowl here. I'm going to put it right underneath. So everything ready. Now the other thing you need is I need my strainer again, and what I'm going to do is strain the water first. You get as much water out as you possibly can. The grain itself is moist, and that'll be it. If it's too moist, it just becomes this slimy mess, and we don't want that. Okay. Just gonna set this one aside for a second. Now, let's look at the kernels really closely. See a little white mark at the top? That little white mark there is where the root is going to start emerging. Now, you could leave this about 12 hours longer, but then it'll be tomorrow morning and you'll actually have good sized roots, and I don't want huge roots. You just want to do this right when it's just about going to have those roots come out and your seed is ready, and you'll get a much nicer bread. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for, is that itsy bitsy white area where that root is going to come out. If you have a warmer house, the process will go quicker. If you have a cooler house, the process will go slower. Okay, so I'm going to just put my bowl just over here, and let's do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all this grain through here. For my plain loaf, I'm going to set that aside. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my other loaf, and I'll show you what to do, because you don't just throw these ingredients in afterwards. I'll show you the steps. So let's have lots of fun here. And you can see it coming out. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? Suddenly it turns to dough. I just think that's just the coolest thing ever. Now I can take my plunger and help it out. Never stick your fingers in here. And it goes quite quick. You'll notice how quick it's going. And then you want to move your bowl around. And I just use my hands up here, push it through if I need to. And you notice if this is any wetter than what it is, it'll start dripping here and kind of be sloppy. But it's going through the machine really easy, very smooth, and that's the perfect consistency we want. And we are all ready. We've only got a quarter more to do here. The other thing that I like about the Omega juicer is how quiet it is. I don't have to yell over the noise. It's super quiet, super efficient. Just a wonderful little machine. Okay. I'm just gonna scrape the last little bit here out of my bowl. Set that aside. And we are already done. I don't know, it probably took us less than 5 minutes here. We are already done our first loaf. So I'm going to just leave that on for a moment, and I'm going to switch my bowls. And this one's a little bit higher. So I'm going to just turn this off, and look at that. That's all dough. So what I'm going to do is, I don't have very many bowls to fit underneath. I'm just going to actually put my finished loaf into this one and work on my second loaf. So again, we're going to take our bowl over here, our second bowl here, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to strain that water off. A little bit on the wrong angle here with my hands. There we go. Perfect. I always lose a couple wheat kernels. It's okay. Okay. Put that back in here. Put this bowl. So now we're going to do something a bit different. Okay? So as we are putting the wheat into the juicer, I'm going to also be throwing in some raisins. And what that happens is the juicer is going to squish the raisins and mix it in with the dough already, so it'll have a sweet bite all the way through. Then just sprinkling the raisins in after. It gives it a much nicer texture. I would do this if I wanted to put, let's say, flax seeds, sesame seeds, chia seeds. I would add it interchangeably also. The honey will add after, and the cinnamon, that's easy to incorporate when I'm kneading the bread. But if you have dry fruit and seeds, this is where you want to do it too. So let's do it. And you can see, look at the raisins. They come right out. It's awesome. Throw a little bit in there, get some wheat. And then when I'm kneading the dough, it'll be a lot easier to mix that in thoroughly. So as you can see, I'm just kind of, as I go, putting in the raisins, and it mixes in. And it'll make it naturally sweet also. Oh, I can smell that, can't you, Shanae? I can smell the raisins.
Yeah.
That nice smell. Now, if you don't want to do raisins, you can do dried goji berries, you can do dried currants, dried apricots, dried prunes if you want to. So like any kind of dried fruit, as long as it's not super hard. You don't want you don't want to put like a banana chip through here. But as long as it's soft, dried fruit, you can put in some dried apples, anything like that will do. So again, we are almost done here. I'm just going to put the last couple scoops through. That around, and then I'm going to take my plunger and just get all the remaining seeds pushed right to the end so nothing stuck. And then I let it just run for about 30 seconds here, and it'll just start pushing all the last little bit of kernels and everything that is in here out. As you can see, it's coming out through here. Alright, so you can see I did get some liquid here. Ocean, follow me please. I did get some liquid here, and instead of this going all over the counter, it's in here, so it's easy to put in my sink. So what I'm going to do now is I don't wait till the very end, otherwise this machine gets all gummed up. It's like it starts to dry really quick. So unattach it, nice and easy. I take it to my sink. I take it apart, which is nice and simple to do. The last little bit on here, I'll just take with my hand, put in my bowl, start putting hot water on it, and I just kind of actually just put it all in here, and I will just fill this up with water. Okay, and just rinse my hands off here, so that way it doesn't just dry on me. The best way to clean your omega is if you have an old toothbrush. It works really good. Put in your hot sink water with soap and water, and then just take your toothbrush, go through it, and it'll clean up really well. Okay, so let's make the bread now. I'm just going to move my omega juicer there, and try not to drop your measuring cups. Okay, so I'm going to do the plain loaf first. And this is where I want olive oil. You're working with flourless bread, so the last thing you want to do is add flour. And I find that olive oil on your hands when you're working with sprouted bread helps it from not sticking to your hands. So I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil on my hands and a little bit on my counter, and I'm going to spread it all over my hands. And then I'm going to work with my bread, because it is sticky. This is completely different consistency than what you're normally used to. And you notice I can knead it very easily. The surface doesn't stick. And all I'm going to do is knead it a bit and form it. And I usually put them into round loaves because they don't really rise. So I kind of just spread it down, make it into a nice circle, just like that. Take it over to my pan. Now this is why it's so important to put the poppy seed or cornmeal so it doesn't stick to your pan. And then I press it down just a little bit more, and there you go. First loaf done. At this point, I want to preheat my oven here to 250 degrees. You want to cook this under low heat for 3 hours under 250. So I'm going to preheat my oven here. Okay, next loaf is the flavored loaf. Again, I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil on my counter, just like that. And I'm going to put my hands in it again. You get some really nice soft hands here. Okay, soft skin. Then I'm going to take this here, and what I'm going to do is make like a little well. I'm going to take my honey, just add a little bit of honey to it, just like that. I'm going to mix that in. And mix in the raisins. And it's a very, I can't really describe how this feels in your hands. It's very squishy and moist. It's the best that I could come up with. Then I'm going to take some cinnamon, and I'm going to just sprinkle cinnamon. Now, you don't have to put as much as I put in. I love cinnamon, so I put a little bit more in than most people do, but I probably add about a tablespoon into this little loaf. And now I'm going to incorporate everything in here. And it's much easier to do this on your counter than it is in your bowl. Your bowl will lift up and it'll stick. And that's why I put the olive oil. And you can see there is not a stick to my counter. And then it makes it really easy to clean up. Okay, so that looks really good. Smells awesome. Okay, so I'm going to shape it again into a bowl. So I'm just going to keep working with it. Keep shaping it a bit. Almost there. Okay, and there you go. And I really like the color with the raisins in it. It gives it some more dimension. And okay, so let's transfer it to my other pan here. And again, put it down on the poppy seeds. Had a nice loaf here. And then we're going to throw it into the oven. So when we put it in the oven, 250 degree Fahrenheit oven for 3 hours. You want to cook this slowly. The top will get really nice and firm and almost stiff on top, and that's just fine. And then I'll show you, when I take it out, I'll show you a little trick that I use so you don't have what we call rock bread. Because what happens with sprouted bread, when you take it out of the oven and let it cool like normal bread, it will literally be almost impossible to cut through because the crust on top is so tough. And there's a trick to prevent that, to have a nice crispy crust that you can actually eat and bite into and have a nice, moist, soft center. So I'll be back in 3 hours. So we are 3 hours from the last time I put in the bread to when it's done. So let's take a look. I'm going to take it right out of the oven. Oh, smell that, Ocean?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So this is the raisin loaf, and you can tell it's nicely, it has a nice golden brown texture. So we are going to, I've got to put my hot pads out. Put this one out here. And then we're going to put this one out here. And this one is, watch it, Annika, this is hot. This one here is the plain loaf. And this one here, you can tell it has raisins. So this one's not going to get as golden brown just because it doesn't have the raisins in it. So what I like to do is you make sure you have your hot pot holders, because this is hot, okay? And we're going to just pop it out. And do you realize how easy it was to pop out? There's the poppy seeds, and take a look at the dish. Here, how much? Without even sticking. Now, if I wouldn't have done that, it would have completely stuck. And let me tell you, from experience, it really, really sticks, okay? So now what you can do one of two things at this point. One, you do not ever want to let it cool uncovered. This crust right here will get so incredibly hard. It's not even funny, okay? Like, I'm talking rock hard, where you're taking your cutting knife and you're going through it and you think you'll never go anywhere. Again, from experience. So what I like to do is I either take the loaf and take a BPA-free bag, put the hot loaf, make sure my hands aren't, remember, the hot loaf in the bag already, seal it up. And the moisture and the condensation that's going to happen will actually keep the crust hard, but not soggy soft, but just enough to work with, okay? So let's take a look. The other thing you can do is you can cut it already. Now I like to put a pot holder on here just because there's lots of texture here and it is warm. Okay, and I'm going to cut a piece here for you guys. And it holds really well together. So this is what it looks like inside. It's nice and moist. And oh, it smells wonderful. Oh, you know what? This just, oh, I don't even know what to describe the flavor. My husband says sometimes it tastes like a graham cracker, like it has that flavor to it. So let's just cut some more here. just to kind of show you what I do. Okay, and so there you go. A wonderful piece. Now you can toast this, you can put fresh butter on this, but you can tell it holds together extremely well. Okay, even when it is hot, normally bread falls apart. So what I'll do is I like cutting it and then throwing it in the bag, but I'm going to just set this aside real quick just to show you, and I'm going to grab this other loaf for you out, and again, there's the poppy seeds. And this one here smells completely different because I use different ingredients in it. And let's do a cut here. And this one's a little bit softer because I added the honey to it. And look at that. Okay, let's take a smell. Oh, I love cinnamon. Let me tell you, I love cinnamon. And all my kids know that Mom loves cinnamon. And this is cinnamony, sweet raisin. Let's just try it. Oh, you don't even need toppings on this. This is so good. Want to try some? Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm talking with my mouth full and enjoying this, and you can't even taste it. Make this bread. You will love it. Okay, same thing. I can cut this up and put it in another bag until it cools, so the crust doesn't become so crazy solid. Otherwise, your bread's done. You got wholesome, nutritious, delicious bread that you can't even buy this from the store. That is so easy to make if you have the right tools with you. Comment if you have any other ideas. If you got questions, let me know. I'd be glad to answer it. Otherwise, I'm going to enjoy my piece of bread here. I'm going to cut the rest up, put it in bags, leave it in the corner till it cools down. And we're going to be eating this off for the next couple of days. Subscribe to my channel and have a great weekend.